So, just finished up playing Shanghai Trader. I didn't keep notes during my play, as I'm using my pad that I use for that for something else right now. So I don't have a really good, clear. I tried to say things during the game rather than save them so much. But let's look at components a little bit. I find the map somewhat garish, but it's functional. It's a little bit distracting at times, especially with the counters on it. The counters are more of a problem. The little player aid, it's okay. And functional. The rules are really kind of iffy. This game is full of special cases, and unfortunately, everything's not completely handled in every location. There's not a reference. It's not terribly long. There are some ambiguities in the rules, however. Just a couple places where you really have to put some interpretation in. The money is functional, but very ugly. I'd rather have little choo-choos on it. These things, same issue. Functional, but very, very plain. I think they contain all the information you need to know. This is important because you're sitting on these, but there's no player aid card or reference to look at what everything does. Those kind of things weren't very common when this came out. Even games like Civilization don't have them. Counters. They're these weird little glossy things. The one thing that I really, really wish with the counters is that the white counters for Japan and the white counters for the play markers were not both white. That's pretty easy to get confused for me. Some of the special counters for the advanced game I wish were color-coded for who owned them. So for example, the German spy is white. That kind of mixes in with other white counters, but it's not a real big deal. The board is more of a problem because it's kind of disturbing, hard to find, what location is where, etc. It's very busy and confused in that way. But for the play of the game, I gotta put that die in, and I gotta yank the rolls out so that I can talk a little bit more about them. For the play of the game, it's so very heavy on luck. So many turns you're rolling to see, you know what you want to do, but you can't do it. You got to roll a die. Did I get to the right place? Or, do I get to do what I want to do? And if there's a lot going on outside of the die rolling, I guess that's okay, but it's pretty much one decision, one die roll, one decision, one die roll throughout the entire game. There isn't a lot of kind of automatic mechanical stuff you can be doing except for the income phase, which is kind of disturbing as well. The income phase, it's hard to find your total income easily. It's not terribly difficult, but it's not trivial. About on the level of calculating larger roots in an 18xx game, I'd say. The idea is what attracted me to this. I liked the junta-like aspect of it. I'm going to steal as much money out of the country as I can, and then hopefully escape. I think in a lot of ways it has a concept that works very nicely. Unfortunately, so much seems to be sort of halfway done. So for example, when you roll to go into an area, okay, if I hit a trading post on two of these numbers, 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, I hit trading posts, that's cool. But there should be something, and this is just adding more Chrome into it, and maybe there's somebody made expansions to it, maybe I would, if I were really into it. And if I had so many fewer games, I would spend so much time, trying to fix this the way I tried to fix things like Magic Realm. It's not worth it. There are enough things that are good that I don't have to do that anymore. So, for example, if you end up at one of the racket locations, what are you going to do with it? Nothing happens. It's just sort of like a significant amount of the time is spent rolling a die and failing to do anything because you land on somebody else's territory, or because you land on territories that have nothing. And at the very least, I think they should have opened up something to do in each of those areas that don't have anything going for them. I also wish you could kind of... So, when you hire a contractor, for the most part, the contractor just goes to the location. In some ways, I wish that when you go to a location, that's when you hire the contractor. So, for example, if I want to mug somebody, maybe I'd have to land on them and do it myself, or maybe it would give me the opportunity to do it that way when I didn't have it otherwise. Even if I could have contracted a mugger otherwise, then it gives me another chance. It feels like so many things in the game, you roll a die and you get nothing out of it. Now that may be okay, but it does kind of feel like you're not, you're not really progressing anywhere. And then the end of the game, it still ends up being a bit of a luck fest right at the end. I know the only time I played this opposed, the only other time I played this, more than half of us didn't even try to leave the country because we didn't quite understand how many steps you have to take to leave. Going to the bank, fine. First of all, I'm not sure that we played that like there was no shipping and nothing else happening, but because I don't remember very well. But we spent our time trying to go to the bank, thinking, okay, well, it doesn't matter if we get out if we have no money, but at some point or another, you want to try to get out at the last possible moment. You can try to get out even if you can't get your money in the bank. And just when that moment was not very obvious because of all the steps you have to take. You have to buy that passport, which is almost a waste. I feel like that's a rule that could have been trimmed away to make the game a little bit more interesting on that last turn. Because if you don't go to buy the passport, you can go there and roll for a passport. Now the rules say you have to roll a 5. What does that mean? I'm taking it exactly a 5, so it's really hard to get out without paying the $50,000. Therefore, you're going to pay it. Okay. So it's just a single turn waster right there. That doesn't really do anything. No one can do anything to you while you're there. So I would rather that just be removed and you don't need a passport. Then when you get to the airfield, you have to plunk down cash for a bodyguard, presumably, or bodyguards. But you still only have a 50-50 chance each turn after the turn you arrive to get out of there. None of that was terribly clear to us on explanation. You really kind of need to have that, drilled into you. And it's not something that's easy to remember from, the initial part of playing the game. When you first have the rules explained to you, you're busy trying to figure out how to do what you need to do at that point. And then you get towards the end of the game, and you really do need somebody experienced enough to say, look, here's what's going to happen. We're getting close to the last turn. Here's how the last turn's going to go. Or something along those lines. For me, it was easy enough to look in the rules because I knew there would be a problem there. I'd already read the rules. But when you're explained a game for the first time, that's kind of rough. And in a lot of ways, this is a game that's hard to play on the first try. It's not clear, which of those properties you really, really want among the rackets. Some of them are definitely much better than some of the others. And then when we look at the advanced game, I kind of don't like the advantages that give one player the only opportunity to own a certain racket. They're needed for balance against some of the other powers, and I do like the other powers, but overall, I'm not sure the advanced game is really as freewheeling a game, because things like the French Club, I can't remember the Shanghai Club, the money exchange. These are reserved for certain players. And then certain other players, though, have really cool abilities, like the German spy, or, well, the minder is really potent in a sense. I mean, nobody messes with you in Shanghai when you have that. Now, as we saw, once you get to the airport, yeah, the minder's not going to do you much good. It's added insurance at best. It's not something you can rely on. But in Shanghai, it's pretty potent. Anyway, overall, I don't think this is going to see a lot of playtime for me. Solitaire, it doesn't play terribly well, and it would be really hard to introduce a new group to this. It kind of violates one of my principles of play a game once, get what you can out of it, and then put it aside for a while and come back to it. It feels like many of the Euro-style games, you really do kind of have to study it a little more, or the CDGs, a little more than I like. I think that maybe a few better play aids, maybe better rules, would make it easier not to be in that position. Make it easier for starting players to pick it up right away and get an idea of what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. Even after playing this for a full game, it's kind of hard to tell what you should be doing in some ways, because, quite frankly, no matter what your plans are, you're unlikely to actually succeed in them because of all the die rolling and everything. So, it comes down to just this luck fest throughout the whole game, and then an extreme luck fest that kind of as to who escapes at the end, that almost invalidates all the previous play. And that's disturbing to me. I don't mind a game that can be shaken up a lot at the end. I like there to be surprises, etc. But when it's all really related and dependent on luck of the die roll, on how many rolls of 4 through 6 can you make at the airport, before you finally get a 1 through 3, or can somebody, are other people shooting at you? If so, there's always a chance, and it could be very low. It could just be 1 in 6, but there's always a chance that someone will take you out. We saw the Japanese taken out by, I think, the first shot. It happens, right? So, I'm glad I own it, just because I had a memory of it, and I would always have this emptiness towards wanting it still. But like Rail Baron, I'm not really sure that I'm glad I own it in the sense that I want to play it very often. I'm just glad not to have that craving to own it still.